talk about bunkers. Now, the first thing to understand is if you are in a bunker, you can just chip it out. Okay, so if those of you that are familiar with the chipping technique, I could just stand up to this and chip the golf ball out just like so. Now, the reason why you can't do that in most bunkers is, as you saw from that type of shot I just hit there, it only went very low. Now, at most golf courses, you will start to notice that the bank, okay, or the ground is at a much higher level. So, the question now is, how am I going to get it higher? And the answer to that is two things. One is loft, so I need to find a way to add more loft, and the second one is going to have to hit it harder. When we hit the golf ball harder, it produces more spin, which helps it go higher. So we're going to have to hit it harder and add more loft. Now, the problem is, all of a sudden, imagine this lip was slightly higher now, a good foot or 2 foot slightly higher. If I hit it harder with a chipping action, then it's going to obviously go too far. So, a couple of things that we want to do. The first one that I want you to do is we're going to add a little bit more loft in the center position. Not loads, okay? So if this is a normal square club face position, just let it turn slightly in your hands. Okay, that's the first thing that I want you to do. Now, the second thing that we need to do to make sure that you maintain loft on the club face is we need to make sure that in the backswing, the club head stays in front of the hands. Because when the club head stays in front of the hands, what it does is it produces an angle on the back of the wrist, which is known as a cupping action. And when you have a cupping action on the wrist, it basically means that you're adding loft. So the bunker and the lob shot is the only kind of shots in golf where you want to really advocate starting with a bit of an angle on the wrist, increasing the angle on the wrist, and delivering it in a sort of scooping action. And the reason for that is because of loft. Now, golfers that struggle in the bunker, they will do a couple of things. They will either start with the club face potentially too square, and if the club face is too square, it's going to be more of a tendency to dig. Or the other problem is they might start okay, but as they're taking it back, the club head goes behind the hands. And when your club head goes behind the hands, you may not know this, but what's actually happening is you're taking all the loft off the club. And all the loft off the club means digging. And that's why you really struggle, because then you're going to feel like, oh, I've got to lean back to get it out of the bunker, and it causes a mess. So we start with a bit more loft. The second thing you could do is grip it a little bit more in the palm. That's something I tend to do, because again, what this does is as I hold it more in the palm, it makes me sort of retain more of a wrist angle here. If I grip it more in the fingers, I always have a little bit more flexion, which again, we don't want to be doing. So start with a little bit more loft. Okay, hold it maybe a little bit more in the palm. You can experiment with that, whether you like that or not is up to you. But what I'm saying now is if I get set up, and let's say I'm just going to hit it roughly just in front of me here, I need to make sure in the backswing the club head stays in front of the hands, because that adds loft and it gives me that wrist angle. And then as I come down, I need to make sure the club head stays in front of my hands. So the swing, okay, so if I'm setting up towards that white flag there, and I draw this in just because you guys are not on the same angle as I'm demonstrating, I need to feel like my club is going to be swinging way more out to in. Okay, but not out to in disconnected this way out to in because you're going to feel like you're picking it up to keep the club head in front of the hands, and then you're going to hold on to that relationship as you come through. And what that will do is that should produce a very shallow hit, which gives you the ability to get the ball out of the bunker. So after all of that, let's see if I can hit a half decent shot. Club face nice and open, going to feel like I swing it up and across the ball. And that is, I would say, a pretty decent demonstration in a lifetime. See you soon.